Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And today I have this little card here. As a demonstrator, we meet with other demonstrators from time to time, and this was what we call a make and take. So one of the demonstrators brought this for us to make, demonstrating a technique or two, and so this is the card we made. And I'm going to change mine up just a little bit. I decided that he needed to be grounded. There was no ground, so I'm going to put a little bit of sand in front of here and have the water go up a little bit further, and that's really all I'm going to change there. And the thing that sold me on this card is I just love the inside. There's these little horses, but the sentiment says, "Live as if someone left the gate open." I just love that sentiment, and I've been wanting to work with this stamp set. So what we need to make this card is we need a Whisper White base that is 8.5 by 5.5, scored and folded at 4 1/4. Then I need a piece of Pacific Point that is 4 inches by 5 1/4, which is going to go on our card front here. And then I need a piece of white again that is 3 3/4 by 5, and that's going to be the piece that layers on top here. Now I'm going to bring in some scratch paper here that I've been working with, and we are going to work on this panel here, this white panel. And what we have to do first is we have to put the horse down on our card base. So here is the card that is the inspiration for this, and I want my horse. On this one, I put him up a little bit too high and almost didn't have room for the birds, and I kind of like the birds. So the trick, I think, is to get this placed a little bit further down, little bit off center to the right here. And because I'm going to put a bit of color on this horse, I'm going to use StazOn ink for this stamp. So I've got my StazOn here, and I'm going to, there's a couple things I need to do. The first is I don't want, let me show you here, on this stamp, there's the horse, and then there's this little representation almost like grass underneath him. Well, I'm going to put sand and water, and so I really don't want that grass there. So I'm just going to take a piece of tape here and cover that up while I ink up my horse, and then I can take it off and it shouldn't affect my image here. Okay, so there we go. Now I'm going to put my ink on my horse with my StazOn here, and I'm going to ink this up real thoroughly because I want a really good crisp image here. And you can tell you've got good ink on there. I'm going to twist this in the light so you can see when the raised parts look wet, and that generally means you've got enough ink. Then I'm going to peel off these pieces here, and I'm going to make absolutely sure that there is no ink on that piece there. All right. Then it's a matter of putting this down where I want this horse. Want him a bit towards the bottom, straight, and a tiny bit towards the right. So that's where the horse is going to go. Let's see how we did here. There we've got the image of the horse. And then what I also have is a mask of the horse. And what I did was I stamped the horse on a piece of photocopy paper, just inexpensive photocopy paper, and I put a little bit of snail on the back of this, and I'm going to put this down and cover my horse so I can put my sand and my water down and not have it go over the top of the horse. Right about there. Okay, there's my mask down and in place. And that does it, at least for now, for this StazOn. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is, I guess I didn't say what stamp sets I'm using, so I'll go back and do that. I wanted to use this stamp set for a while. It's called Let It Ride, and from this one I'm using the horse, the For You, and this sentiment on the inside, live as if someone left the gate open. Then the other stamp set I'm using is High Tide, and from this one I'm using the water and the sun, and then this representation of sand. And that's what we're going to use to put sand down on our card. And I'm using quite a few inks, but we're going to start with Sahara sand here. And I'm going to take my representation of sand, and I'm just going to put a bit across the bottom here. So, and it doesn't have to be flat or straight. And there we go. We've got some sand there, and I'm going to put some around on a couple places here. Here we go. Put some down in here, and then some across the feet of the horse so that it looks like he's actually galloping on the sand. And there we go. Okay, one more little bit over here. I need to fill that spot in a little bit, it looks like. And there we've got sand down as though it's on a beach. The next thing we're going to do is use the water, and I'm using Pool Party and Pacific Point. And so let me see, grab my Pool Party here, and I'm going to be stamping off quite a bit here to get the water to look the way I want it to. I'm going to stamp off, and then put a small amount down here in the background. And I'm going to lift that up so that it's not over the sand so much. There we go. Trying to create a horizon line, if you will, back here. And I'm going to stamp some of that in, and I think that's probably enough of the Pool Party. And so next I'm going to take the Pacific Point, because I want the Pacific Point on here so it will pick up the layering piece behind our front piece here. So again, I'm going to stamp off, and then just get a hint of this Pacific Point along here and along my horizon line. And again, stamp off, and pick up a little bit of that darker. As you know, water is lots of different colors, and I just want this to look as realistic as possible. Okay, there we go. So now I've got that in place. I'm going to leave the mask on the horse, because the other thing we want to do is put a little bit of sky behind all of this. And I chose Balmy Blue, yet another blue to use on this. And I have a sponge here, and I'm going to take my sponge and put a little bit of the blue sky. Oh, and there's one other piece I want to put in place. Okay, so what I'm going to do is use my Daffodil Delight, and then this little sun from the High Tide is something I'm using, this little sun right here, and I'm going to put a sun on our background here. I'm going to put mine on this side right here, and then I'm going to take a little piece of copy paper, and I am going to punch out this little 3/4 of an inch circle so that I can mask the sun as I'm putting in the sky behind it. So I'm going to just put a little bit of snail on that and block that off there. And then I can go back to putting in my sky behind. Now, when you're using a sponge on these, oftentimes it is best to start your movement off the page and then move on the page, only because the sponge has a tendency to leave heavier marks right at the beginning, and you want that to happen off of your page, not on it. So working around my horse here, and independent of my water, and that's part of the reason I wanted to use another color for the sky, was that I want it to be different and not blend in too much with the water that we've got going down below. And so I'm going to put my sky in here. There we go. All right, I think we've got enough of a sky in here. I just did what I told you not to. So I started that bit of sponging right on the card, and I meant to start it off. Okay, well, that's a good place for a bird to go then. So the next thing I'm going to do is take my birds, take off my my mask on the sun, and I'm going to sponge a little bit of that sky around it. Takes down the yellow on the sun a little bit and makes it look a little bit better. Now I'm going to take off, let's see, am I going to take off the mask? Maybe I'll leave the mask on while I put the birds on too. So I'm going to go back to my StazOn ink here and ink up these birds. Make sure I've got them right side up. I have put these birds on more than once upside down. Okay, and so I'm going to have one of my birds go across the sun and a little bit behind the horse's head. So I'm leaving that mask on there, and we'll see how this comes out. There we go. So my bird is going a little bit across the sun, and he is going to be behind the head of the horse here. Doesn't that look a little bit more realistic that way? That's great. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I did mount from the high tide is a couple of these little pieces of grass. And let me close up my ink here before I put my arm in it. And then I have a little bit of mossy meadow. And so I decided to put my grass in mossy meadow. So I'm going to take these two little pieces of grass that are together here and ink them up and just give a tiny bit of interest here in the sand where there might be a little piece of grass. And then I've got a much smaller one here that I don't want to overdo this, but I want to put a few little pieces of the grass in there. And I think it adds a little interest to the beach. Okay, now then, I think the next and last thing I need to do with this is to put a little bit of color on my horse here. And what I'm going to use to do that is my alcohol marker in the light crumb cake. So I'm going to take the small brush end of the crumb cake, and in small circular motions I'm going to add some color to the horse here. And I'll speed this up so it isn't quite so tedious. Okay, as you can see, I used a little bit of the darker also of my marker to give the horse a little bit of a highlight, and then I used my black marker to fill in his hoofs and then define the little horsehair on his mane and his tail a little bit because it was a little bit pale. And I'll probably do the same thing with these birds that could have been a little bit more solid. So I'll fill a couple of those things in, and I think that's pretty good. There we go. All right. So then that is pretty well done, except for this For You stamp over here on the side. And I'm going to switch back to Momento because I think my Momento ink pad is a little juicier here. And in fact, since I put the sun and the birds on that side, I think I'm going to put my For You on this side on this card. And pardon me if I get my head in the shot. I'm trying to get this straight. For You right up here. And then we're going to move to the inside of the card. And on the inside of the card, what we have are these two little horses that we're going to put down here in the corner, and then our other sentiment stamp. So I'm going to put these horses right down here. Let me make sure I've got those good and inked up. And I'm going to put those down here. There we go. And then I'm going to fill in the grass a little bit with my Mossy Meadow here so that it matches the little grass on the front of the card. And it grounds these horses just a little. Okay. Then we've got our last sentiment, which says, "Live as if someone left the gate open." And so I'm going to put that right in the middle of this card. There we go. Very good. Now then, what we're going to do is put our layers together, and this card will basically be done. So here we go. I'm going to just use some snail on the back of my card front here. And I'm not putting a lot of dimension or anything else on this. I think this is interesting enough just the way it is. So I'm going to center this on this specific point, and you can see while we stamped off and stamped off on the water, it's picking up the blue in the water. I think that's really, I like the composition of this one pretty well. Okay, so this one now just needs to go on here, and again, I'm going to lay it on flat. You could certainly put one or the other of these up on dimensionals if you choose to, but I think there's enough going on this scene that it'll be just fine this way. So I'm going to center this on the front of my card here. There we go. And actually, I'm pretty pleased with this. So we've got a really nice composition, a sun that could either be setting or rising. We've got birds, we've got the sand, we've got the water and the horse. And on the inside, again, I just love the sentiment. And so that is the card and the project for today. So thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel today. I do so appreciate it. And if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be your demonstrator, or you could join my team. It would be lovely if you joined my team. All right, so there is our finished product. Now, anything you saw me used here today is available on my website, www.lbedinger.stampinup.net, or you can get to it through my blog, www.inkandangenuity.com. And let's see, this video is going to go up on Thursday. Then I'll be filming one for Saturday and a tips and tricks for Sunday, but I'll be away at convention. So those will be up and dropping, and then I'll be back with swaps and all kinds of fun things from the convention and maybe some sneak peeks of new stuff from the catalog. Should be fun. Okay, let's see, my prize draw for the month is there it is. It is the Amazing Life stamp set bundle. So you get this stamp set, and the thing also that you get with this is the rectangle stitched framelit dies. And so that is the prize for the month, and all you have to do to get into the drawing is make an order on my website. And again, that's it for me. So I'll be back soon with more cards and more projects. Bye!